Welcome to Sister Scoop, where we are coming to you with the top 3 Marvel news topics of the week. We're going to start with some fun news for those of you who are fans of the Defenders universe, and that is that Jessica Jones is coming back entering into the MCU.
Yeah, so it sounds like there are some not definitive rumors that she is going to get her own show again, which, as you all remember, she did have her own show in the Netflix universe. I quite liked her show. I thought that Kristen Ritter was great. So I'm excited that she's coming back in Daredevil, but I think it would be awesome if she got her own show again. So this is really great news. You all know I am like an unabashed defender of the Defenders universe. I know a lot of people had their thoughts, but I really liked honestly the vast majority of it. So I think the more that we can bring these characters back in different ways, I'm all for it. So this is great news, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not shocked by this news. As you kind of mentioned, we already pretty much knew she was coming back for Daredevil season 2. So it kind of seemed like, okay, we're recollecting them all, if you will. I think we also were talking at some point about Luke Cage returning.
Yeah.
Nobody really has to talk about Iron Fist, but that's been talked about as well.
Yeah.
So I do think because of that, it's really not news that she is going to be kind of coming back. It's more that she might be getting her own show, which is going to be interesting. I do think Daredevil's transition into the MCU had some rocky moments, but I don't entirely think that's Marvel related more than it just kind of seems like that was the Netflix to Marvel transition that was a little bit rocky for them more than the actual show itself. So if they kind of go that route, they allow her to have her own show. We've done it already before. Hopefully it's not quite as rocky and it would be pretty good.
Yeah, and I think they can use a lot of the learnings that they have from the Daredevil transition from Netflix to the MCU to make it a lot smoother so that we don't get that kind of, to your point, like rocky first season, and it can just kind of be a really smooth transition, especially since she will have made the transition actually in Daredevil versus in her own show. So I know there's like a whole universe around her that's like separate from what she's going to do in Daredevil Born Again, but I think that'll also help kind of bridge that gap so we can see where she's been and then build out that world a little bit further when hopefully she does get her own show.
Yeah, definitely. On to our next topic. I actually feel like we've talked about this one before. This doesn't feel new either, but Coleman Domingo is supposedly in talks with Marvel. I think we actually talked about him when everything was going on with the kind of Kang drama and just what's going to happen with Kang. Are we going to recast? Are we, going to just move away? Obviously, the answer ended up being we were moving away from him. But I do think he was a name that came up during those discussions. Now it seems that his name is coming up once again.
Yeah, so the reason that this is kind of like new news, but also kind of not new news, he was at the Golden Globes this past weekend and was asked, like, hey, like, are you having conversations with Marvel Studios? And he said he's had one conversation with Kevin, and they're kind of just trying to find what is that really intentional right fit for him. I know a lot of the speculation, even about, around this reconfirmation of his interest in the MCU has been, a recast of Kang still. I don't see that happening personally. I think they are going to bury that character far under the rug and just pretend that whole storyline did not happen and just kind of move forward from that, especially if we end up focusing on the X-Men. It just doesn't make sense. The other one that I've seen a lot of is Norman Osborn, because of course he does play Norman Osborn or voices Norman Osborn in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So that would be a great transition for him to go from animated to live action, which would be really fun. So I think he's a great actor. I am excited. I hope that they do find that, right choice for him in terms of character. And I'm hoping that excuse me, I'm hoping that's coming sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I've also been seeing a lot of the discussion around it being a recast of Kang. And I would have to agree. I just don't really think it makes sense where we're going in general, it doesn't make sense to move forward with Kang anymore. I think if that was going to happen, it was worth doing, what was that, 2-3 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
I just don't really see the point of bringing that character back. I do think he was interesting, and I'm sure they did have quite a bit of story kind of like laid out for him and what they expected him to do. He was supposed to be the big bad of a saga. Like, I know they're not out here just winging it with him completely. I know there were things that we didn't love about some of his portrayals, like Ant-Man, but we definitely, I think can confidently say they probably had quite the plan for him, and that's just not something they could move forward with, and that's all right. But they chose not to at the time, so I just don't really think there's value in bringing him back as a character anymore. And as you said, doesn't really make too much sense right now with the X-Men coming in next. I did want to mention that's I saw some people, and this was just like fan speculation. This had nothing to do with like actual rumors from any credible sources. This is genuine fan speculation on the internet. Some people were mentioning Bishop from the X-Men, which I thought would be kind of an interesting cast because we haven't really gotten, I feel like, and I could be wrong. Honestly, I've seen all the X-Men movies at this point, but I feel like they've been so like cut up in my mind that I can't actually say for sure, but I don't really feel like we've gone the route of bringing Bishop in too heavily in any of the previous X-Men live action. So I love him. I'm literally wearing my X-Men 97 shirt right now. Obviously, he's in the show. He actually plays quite a big part. So it'd be really interesting if that was maybe a route they did decide to go with Coleman Domingo.
Yeah, I mean, Bishop is a cool character, so I think we have seen him
like once,
briefly,
but nothing major.
Yeah, and I think that like he definitely deserves to have like more storylines and kind of the treatment that he's gotten both in the original animated series and in X-Men 97, where he's not like maybe a main cast character, but he's enough of a recurring character that you're like, oh, I love Bishop, like he's really cool and he absolutely kicks butt. Like I would love to see that, so I'd be on board for that. I didn't see that one, so that would be cool.
Yeah, like I said, that's just fan speculation. That is not a confirmation or like a genuine rumor. That is just things people are thinking about. But a cool character I would like to see brought to life. And I think if they're going to hopefully have him part of, or at least loosely part of the X-Men roster in the next saga, I would not be against seeing him being played by Coleman Domingo. So there you go for that. Some sad news for us personally, as we were fans of this show. I'm sure there are plenty of people who are rejoicing. Not whatever. Tatiana, I always say her last name wrong. Tatiana Maslany.
Guys, we are not good at pronunciation, and
I'm
we own
awful
that.
at it, and I'm always the first one who has to say them, and it makes me nervy. Normally beforehand, I ask, and I was like, I know how to say it. We did the show, and then I was like, I don't know. I just looked, and I was like, I'm fearing that this is not going to come out right. Either way, She-Hulk is not going to be moving forward pretty much at all as a character. It sounds like the character itself is just being, I don't know, kind of put to the ground, if you will.
Well, it's a little unclear. So it sounds like the real kind of definitive break actually happened between Tatiana and the studio, allegedly due to some of her comments around some of Disney's recent political issues, if you will. She had been, speaking out about those pretty openly, and so there is some talk that maybe that kind of caused a rift between the studio and her. They don't want to talk, or they didn't want to work with someone who was so openly, encouraging people to cancel subscriptions and things like that. That's not been confirmed, but that's just like a lot of the speculation online. So because it has been so kind of focused on Tatiana specifically, it's a little unclear if there's ever going to be another She-Hulk, if it's going to be a recast or if they're just going to completely kind of sideline the character. It is definitely a bummer. I thought she was great. We'll see. I would love to, I don't want to see her replaced necessarily, but I also don't want to not be able to see She-Hulk, so it's kind of like a sticky situation.
Yeah, it's one of those where I have a bad feeling that we won't be seeing this character returning.
Yeah.
And that goes down to even before all this, guys, when were we seeing She-Hulk again? Nobody can look me in the eye and tell me she was not a confirmed character for Doomsday or Secret Wars. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people in those movies that we won't inherently know are in them, but I would like to think that one of your newer characters that you introduced in this phase would be one that you feel confident in confirming ahead of time that they are on set and filming. And she was not one of them. So I think from that was already like that moment to me was already a bit of a telling truth. And then just as from a studio perspective, the show was kind of another one of those that was like some people loved it, some people absolutely hated it. I think it was very meta, and I think it did its job for being very meta. And I think that in it of itself did not always go over well with everybody who was watching it, with the audience. So I just don't unfortunately see that the character probably felt very strong from the studio perspective anyway. So it just, I think this was a building thing, and somebody just finally pushed the boulder down the hill. It's unfortunate because, to your point, I do like She-Hulk. I like the show. I found her enjoyable. Obviously, she was cousins with our Hulk, so it was interesting to kind of have that familial like connection and everything like that. And he's still involved, so it would have been cool to kind of see them together with everybody else. But it doesn't seem that we'll be going that way anytime soon. But we'll just have to see if we do get a recast of She-Hulk. Fingers, to your point, fingers crossed.
Yeah, it's a bummer all the way around. That one's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, the other point is just, again, with the mutants around the corner, I think it's hard to tell what Avengers, and by Avengers, I'm using that as a blanket statement. I mean, like, pretty much anybody who's, it's either X-Men or Avengers right now. That's kind of how we're viewing them. And really anybody who's the Avengers side of it, it's kind of hard to tell how involved they're going to be or not involved, how many movies, shows we're going to get that are Avengers related versus X-Men related. So I think that's another thing that we probably have bigger characters that they're going to want to try to highlight than She-Hulk, unfortunately.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right. Well, that has been Sister Scoop for this week. We hope you guys come back next week as we cover 3 more Marvel news topics of the future yet to come. We will see. Hopefully, good news to come. But on the podcast side, we are gearing up for our Wonder Man coverage. I hope you guys are excited. It is dropping all at once, so get ready for that. It's going to be a whole lot of content all at once. Go visit us on that side as well, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.